Parents demanded I gift my apartment to the golden child. Grandpa's revenge was biblical. Hey friends! Got a sec? Drop your thoughts in the comments and hit subscribe. It's quick for you, but it really means a lot to us. Alright, let's dive into today's story. Original post. 30M. Never thought I'd be writing something like this, but I need outside perspective because my entire family is making me feel like I'm losing my mind. For context, I work as a software engineer and have been living in a downtown apartment that I purchased 3 years ago. It's nothing fancy, a modest 2-bedroom in an older building, but it's mine. I saved for years for the down payment, often working overtime and freelance projects on weekends. My parents, Richard and Barbara, 58M, 56F, were supportive at the time, though they made several comments about how I was lucky to afford it so young. My younger sister, Emily, 26F, got engaged 6 months ago to her boyfriend Mark. I was genuinely happy for her. Emily and I have always had a decent relationship, though she's definitely been the golden child. She went to art school, parents paid, took a gap year to find herself in Europe, parents funded, and now works part-time at a gallery while pursuing her passion for pottery. I'm not bitter about it. We're just different people with different paths. Last Sunday, my parents invited me over for what they called an important family discussion. Emily and Mark were there too. Mom had made my favorite lasagna, which should have been my first warning sign. After dinner, Dad cleared his throat and said they wanted to discuss the apartment situation. I assumed they meant helping Emily and Mark find a place, maybe asking if I had any real estate contacts. I was wrong. Connor, my mother started, using her special occasion voice. As you know, Emily's wedding is coming up, and we've been thinking about what would be the most meaningful gift we could give as a family. I nodded, thinking they wanted me to chip in for something expensive. I'd already budgeted to contribute to the wedding costs. We think, Dad continued, that you should gift your apartment to Emily and Mark as their wedding present. I actually laughed. I thought it was a joke. The room stayed silent. You're serious? I asked. Emily leaned forward, her eyes bright with excitement. Connor, it would mean everything to us. That apartment is perfect for starting a family, and you're single anyway. You could easily find a studio or move back home for a while to save money. Move back home. At 30. After working my ass off to buy my own place. That's my home, I said slowly. That I bought. With my money. Mom's face hardened. Connor, don't be selfish. Family helps family. When Emily gets established in her art career, I'm sure she'll help you out too. Help me out with what? I'm already established. I have a career, a home. Which you can rebuild, Dad interrupted. You're young. You have a good job. Emily and Mark are just starting out. The wedding alone is costing us a fortune, and housing prices are insane right now. Then maybe they should have a smaller wedding? I suggested. The room exploded. Emily started crying, saying I was trying to ruin her special day. Mom accused me of being materialistic and forgetting what family means. Dad said he was disappointed in my selfishness and lack of brotherly love. Mark, to his credit, looked uncomfortable and tried to suggest they could look into other options, but Emily shut him down immediately. No, Mark. Connor has that huge apartment all to himself. It's not fair. He doesn't even use the second bedroom. We need it more than he does. I use it as my office, I pointed out, where I do the freelance work that helped me afford the place. You can work from coffee shops, Emily said, as if that solved everything. The discussion went on for another hour. They had it all planned out. I would transfer the deed as a wedding gift, they'd cover the transfer fees, how generous, and I could stay there rent-free for 3 months while I found a new place. They presented this as if they were doing me a favor. When I refused and tried to leave, Dad blocked the door. We're not done discussing this. Yes, we are, I said. The apartment isn't up for discussion. It's mine. End of story. Everything you have is because of us, Mom said coldly. We raised you, supported you. And I'm grateful, I interrupted. But I'm not obligated to give away my home because Emily's getting married. I pushed past Dad and left. Since then, I've received multiple texts daily from all 3 of them. Mom sends guilt trips about how she never thought she'd raise such a selfish son. Dad sends articles about family values and the importance of supporting siblings. Emily sends pictures of dream nurseries and says I'm destroying her chance at happiness. The extended family has gotten involved too. Aunts and uncles are calling me, saying I should do the right thing and that Emily deserves a proper start to married life. Apparently, my parents have told everyone I'm swimming in money and have multiple properties. I don't. The only person who hasn't contacted me is my grandfather, William, Dad's father. He and I have always been close, but he lives across the country and doesn't do social media or group chats, so he probably doesn't know about the situation yet. I feel like I'm going insane. Is it really that unreasonable to want to keep the home I worked for? My parents keep saying that family should come first, but doesn't that go both ways? Why am I the only one expected to sacrifice? I'm at the point where I'm considering going no contact until after the wedding, but I'm worried that will just escalate things further. Any advice would be appreciated because I genuinely don't know how to handle this anymore. Update 1, 3 weeks later. I wasn't planning to update so soon, but something major has happened, and I need to share it while it's still fresh. After my original post, I took your advice and stayed firm. I also took the precaution of ensuring all my important documents were secure and that my parents had no access to any of my financial accounts. They didn't, but better safe than sorry. The harassment continued. Emily escalated to sending me voice messages crying about how I was ruining her life. Mom started telling family friends that I was breaking the family apart over material possessions. Dad sent me a formal letter, actually had it notarized, requesting I reconsider my position regarding the family property. It's not family property. Then, last Thursday, everything changed. I got a call from Grandpa William. His voice was careful, measured, the tone he uses when he's gathering information. "Connor," he said, "I heard an interesting story from your Aunt Patricia about you refusing to help your sister. Want to tell me your version?" I told him everything. The ambush dinner, the demand for my apartment, the 3-month grace period, they offered like they were being generous, the daily harassment since. He listened without interrupting, occasionally making thoughtful humming sounds. When I finished, there was a long pause. Then he said, "I'll be flying in tomorrow. Don't tell your parents." Grandpa William is not someone you argue with. He built his construction company from nothing into a multi-million-dollar operation. He's retired now, but still sharp as a tack and takes no bullshit from anyone. He's also the one holding the purse strings to a significant inheritance that my parents are expecting. He arrived Friday afternoon and came straight to my apartment. He walked through it slowly, noting the improvements I'd made, the home office setup, the careful maintenance. "You did good, Connor," he said, settling into my couch. "This is a solid investment. Good bones. Good location. You should be proud." We talked for hours. He told me about his own struggles when he was starting out, how his family had also tried to guilt him into giving up his first property to help a cousin. He'd refused and caught hell for it, but it was the foundation of everything he built after. "Here's what we're going to do," he said finally. "I'm going to have a chat with Richard and Barbara. And Emily. Don't worry about it anymore." I tried to ask what he was planning, but he just smiled and told me to order us some dinner. The next day, Saturday, Grandpa called a family meeting at my parents' house. He didn't tell them he was in town, just showed up. I wasn't there, but I heard about it from multiple sources, including a very rattled Mark who called me afterward. According to Mark, Grandpa walked in just as they were all discussing strategies to make Connor see reason. The room went silent. Dad went pale. "Don't stop on my account," Grandpa said, settling into Dad's usual chair. "I'm fascinated to hear how you plan to steal my grandson's home." Mom tried to explain it wasn't stealing, that it was about family helping family. Grandpa let her talk, then asked a simple question, "And what is Emily contributing to this family help?" "She's getting married," Mom started. "That's not a contribution, that's a life choice," Grandpa interrupted. "What I'm asking is, Connor gives up his home, his investment, his security. What does Emily give up?" Silence. "Nothing." Interesting definition of family help. Seems more like theft with emotional manipulation to me. Dad tried to argue that Connor could afford to start over, that he made good money. "So does Mark," Grandpa pointed out. "He's an accountant, right? 2 incomes, no kids yet. Why can't they afford their own place?" Emily burst into tears, saying they were saving for the wedding and it wasn't fair that Connor got help when he was starting out. "What help?" Grandpa asked. "You gave him money for his down payment." Emily accused. Grandpa laughed. Actually laughed. "I gave Connor $5,000 for his 30th birthday, which he told me he was putting toward the apartment. I gave you $5,000 for your 25th birthday, which you spent on a trip to Bali. Would you like to discuss fair?" Then he dropped the bomb. "Here's what's going to happen," he said, his voice turning steel. "This harassment of Connor stops now. No more texts, no more calls, no more flying monkeys. If I hear, and I will hear, that anyone has so much as suggested he should give up his apartment, there will be consequences." "You can't threaten us," Dad said. I'm not threatening. I'm informing you of my decisions. I've been thinking about my will lately. Thinking maybe I've been too generous with some people. Thinking maybe I should skip a generation entirely and leave everything in trust for my great-grandchildren, Connor's future kids. Or maybe just leave it all to Connor directly, since he seems to be the only one who understands the value of working for something. The room was silent. Mark later told me you could hear a pin drop. But family helps family, right? Grandpa continued. So I'm going to help. Emily, I'll give you and Mark $10,000 as a wedding gift to help with a down payment on your own place. Something modest, something you can afford. Consider it an advance on any future inheritance. 10,000. Mom sputtered. That's nothing in this market. It's $10,000 more than Connor got from anyone when he was saving, Grandpa replied. And it's $10,000 more than you'll get if I hear one more word about Connor's apartment. He stood to leave, then turned back. Oh, and Richard, that family vacation home you've been eyeing in your retirement plans? The one you're assuming you'll inherit? Might want to have a backup plan. He left without another word. The aftermath was immediate. Dad called me, furious, saying I'd turned Grandpa against them. I pointed out I hadn't even known he was coming. Mom sent a long text about how I destroyed the family. Emily hasn't contacted me at all. But they've stopped demanding the apartment. The flying monkeys have gone silent. Aunt Patricia even called to apologize, saying she hadn't realized the full situation. Mark texted me separately, for what it's worth, I never thought it was right. I told Emily we should save for our own place. I'm sorry you got put through this. I feel relieved, vindicated, but also sad. I didn't want it to come to threats about inheritance. I just wanted them to respect that my home is mine. Grandpa called me yesterday. They'll come around, he said. Or they won't. Either way, you keep building your life. That apartment is yours, and don't you ever let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting what you've earned. I don't know what happens next with my family, but at least the immediate crisis is over. Thank you to everyone who told me to stand firm. I can't imagine how much worse this would have been if I'd caved. Update 2, 6 months later. I know it's been a while, but I wanted to give a final update now that Emily's wedding has passed and things have settled into a new normal. The months following Grandpa's intervention were tense. There was no more harassment about the apartment, but there was definitely a Cold War happening. I wasn't invited to any family dinners, and Mom would post passive-aggressive Facebook statuses about children who choose material goods over family. Emily didn't speak to me at all for 2 months. Radio silence. Mark, however, would occasionally send me updates. He was clearly uncomfortable with the whole situation and trying to stay neutral while supporting his future wife. Then, 3 months before the wedding, I got a call from Emily. Her voice was quiet, hesitant. Connor, can we talk? I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop, neutral ground. She looked tired, stressed. Wedding planning, she explained, wasn't going the way she'd hoped. Mom and Dad keep pushing for bigger, more expensive everything, she said, fidgeting with her engagement ring. The venue, the flowers, the dress. It's all spiraling out of control. And now with Grandpa's stance on things, they're freaking out about money but won't scale back. What does this have to do with me? I asked, not unkindly but needing to set boundaries. She took a deep breath. Mark and I have been talking. A lot. About everything. He never wanted your apartment. He was horrified when Mom and Dad brought it up, but I was so caught up in this fantasy of the perfect life starting with the perfect home. She paused, gathering herself. I'm sorry, Connor. I'm really, truly sorry. I got so wrapped up in what I thought I deserved that I forgot you're my brother, not just a resource to tap. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was genuine. We talked for 2 hours. She admitted that she'd been living in a bubble, enabled by our parents, assuming things would always work out because they always had before. The reality of adult life was hitting hard. Mark and I found an apartment, she said eventually. It's small, a 1-bedroom in the suburbs, but it's what we can afford. And honestly, we're excited about it. It feels like ours, you know. I did know. That's exactly how I'd felt about my place. We slowly started rebuilding our relationship. I helped them move into their new apartment, even gave them some furniture I'd been planning to replace. Mark pulled me aside during the move to thank me for being gracious about everything. The wedding ended up being smaller than originally planned. Emily and Mark had put their foot down about the budget, causing another family drama, but they held firm. It was beautiful, intimate, personal, actually reflecting who they were as a couple rather than my parents' vision of society grandeur. I attended, of course. There was still tension with my parents, but we were civil. During the reception, Emily made a point of pulling me onto the dance floor for the sibling dance, and in her speech, she thanked me for teaching her important lessons about standing on your own 2 feet. Mom and Dad have slowly thawed toward me, though things aren't the same. We have surface-level conversations, and they don't bring up the apartment anymore. I think Grandpa's threat still looms large in their minds. Speaking of Grandpa William, he attended the wedding and made quite the impression. During his toast, he talked about the importance of building something for yourself, of partnership being about 2 people creating their own path, not taking from others. It was pointed but not cruel. Afterward, he pulled me aside. "I'm proud of you, Connor. And I'm proud of Emily too. She's growing up." Last week, Grandpa called with news. He's officially updated his will. The family vacation home my parents were counting on? It's going into a trust that can only be accessed for family gatherings. No one can claim sole ownership or sell it. The monetary inheritance is structured differently too, with protections in place so no one can be pressured to give up their share to another family member. "I also set aside a fund," he said, "for your future kids' education. And Emily's. Equal amounts, but in separate trusts that can't be touched for any other purpose. No one can guilt anyone into giving it up." "You didn't have to do that," I said. "I did. This whole mess showed me that your parents never learned the lesson I tried to teach them about earning your way. But you learned it, and Emily's learning it now. That's worth protecting. Emily and Mark are doing well in their apartment. She's actually taken on more hours at the gallery and started selling her pottery online. It's small scale, but she's building something of her own. We have dinner once a month now, sometimes at my place, sometimes at theirs. Last time, she looked around my apartment and said, 'I get it now. This isn't just an apartment. It's your accomplishment. I'm sorry I tried to take that from you.' Water under the bridge, I told her, and meant it. My relationship with my parents may never fully recover, but I've made peace with that. I've learned that family isn't about blind sacrifice or giving up what you've earned to enable someone else's dreams. It's about mutual respect, support that goes both ways, and sometimes, standing firm even when everyone tells you you're wrong. My apartment has become a symbol of more than just home ownership. It's proof that I can stand my ground, that my achievements matter, and that I don't need to set myself on fire to keep others warm. To everyone who told me not to cave, thank you. You were absolutely right. And to anyone facing similar pressure, your accomplishments are yours. You earned them. Don't let anyone, family or otherwise, convince you that you owe them what you've built. Sometimes the best thing you can do for your family is show them that boundaries exist for a reason. Oh, and one funny footnote. Aunt Patricia, who was one of the flying monkeys, recently asked if I had any advice for her son who wants to buy his first property. "Work hard, save carefully, and don't expect anyone else to give you theirs," I told her. She had the grace to look embarrassed. Life is good. Different than before, but good. Final update, 1 year after the wedding. I thought I was done updating, but something wonderful happened that feels like the right way to close this chapter. Last weekend was Grandpa William's 80th birthday. The whole family gathered at the vacation home for a celebration. Yes, including my parents, Emily, Mark, and me. It was the first time we'd all been together for something positive since before the apartment drama. The morning of the party, Emily asked if we could take a walk on the beach. Just the 2 of us. As we walked, she told me about how she and Mark were saving for a house. Properly this time, with a budget and a 5-year plan. "We might even be able to buy in your neighborhood," she said with a smile. "Not your building, obviously, but nearby. Mark got promoted, and my pottery business is actually turning a profit now." "That's amazing, Em," I said, and meant it. She stopped walking and turned to face me. "Connor, I need to say something. I know I apologized before, but I don't think I really understood then what I was apologizing for. I thought I was just sorry for trying to take your apartment. But it was so much more than that." She took a breath, clearly emotional. "I was sorry for not seeing you as a person. You were just my older brother who had stuff I wanted. I never saw the late nights, the sacrifice, the discipline it took for you to get where you are. Mom and Dad raised me to believe I was special just for existing, that things would come to me because I deserved them. You threatened that worldview just by being successful through hard work." "Emily." "No, let me finish. That apartment situation was the wake-up call I needed. Mark and I could have imploded over it. He was so frustrated with me during that time. But instead, we used it to really talk about what we wanted to build together. And watching you stand your ground, even when everyone was against you. It taught me something about integrity I should have learned a long time ago. We hugged on that beach, and for the first time in over a year, I felt like I had my sister back. Not the entitled princess our parents created, but the real Emily who was finally growing into herself. The party itself was beautiful. Grandpa was in fine form, telling stories and making everyone laugh. During dinner, he stood up to make a speech. 80 years teaches you a lot, he said. But this past year taught me something new. I spent so long building financial success that I forgot to teach some important lessons along the way. I failed my son in some ways. Richard, I love you, but I spoiled you. And you passed that on. The room was silent, uncomfortable. But then I see Connor, who somehow learned that work has value, that what you build with your own hands is worth protecting. And I see Emily, who had the courage to learn that lesson later, even when it was hard. That gives me hope. He raised his glass. To the next generation, may you build something worth protecting, and may you have the wisdom to protect it. After dinner, Dad approached me. We hadn't had a real conversation in months. Your grandfather's right, he said quietly. I did fail you. Not in the way he thinks. I failed you by not recognizing what you'd accomplished. I was so focused on Emily being happy that I was willing to destroy your happiness to achieve it. Dad. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just acknowledging it. You're a good man, Connor. Better than I raised you to be, which means you became that despite me, not because of me. It wasn't an apology exactly, but it was an acknowledgement. That was enough for now. As the evening wound down, Grandpa pulled me and Emily aside together. I'm updating the trust again, he announced. I'm adding a provision. Once a year, the whole family has to gather at the vacation home. No exceptions, no excuses. If people don't show, their portion of any inheritance gets donated to charity. Grandpa, you can't force people to, Emily started. I can and I will, he said firmly. This family nearly tore itself apart over property and money. So now the property brings us together, or the money goes away. Simple. He winked at me. Your apartment stays yours, of course. But I expect you to host Christmas sometimes. Deal, I said. As I drove home that night, I reflected on how far we'd all come. My apartment, once the symbol of everything that divided us, was now just my home. Emily and Mark were building their own life, brick by brick. My parents were slowly learning that their children were adults, not extensions of their wishes. And Grandpa William, he'd turned out to be the hero none of us knew we needed. I still have my apartment. I still have my family, different as those relationships might be now. And most importantly, I have the knowledge that standing up for myself, even when it felt like the whole world was against me, was the right thing to do. To everyone who's followed this story, thank you for your support. And remember, family is important, but it should never come at the cost of your own security and self-respect. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. Sometimes protecting what you've built is the foundation for building something even better.